Hello, shalom, salam, and hola. My name is Michael, and this is Hot Jewish Energy. New intro, which we had before, but welcome to part 2 of the season 2 premiere. This is episode 2, and in my previous episode, we talked about family and friends and how that has been a very, very weird journey for me, especially after the war, the October 7th massacres, and the ongoing war right now. And now in this part, I'm going to catch you guys up on what's been going on with school. Because when I was filming the last time, I was prepping to go into grad school. And now, 2 years later, I'm prepping to go into my final year, my third and final year of grad school. I am currently getting a Master's of Fine Art and Masters of Fine Art or Master in Fine Arts. I don't know which it is. It is a MFA in theater, contemporary theater and performance. That's the full title, but I just say theater because it's just easier that way. It's a multidisciplinary degree. I am learning all different types of things within the theater realm, a lot of the creative, a lot of the behind the scenes, a lot of the on stage, which I personally have more experience with. So I've really gotten to put my hands in different things like directing, writing, hoping that I can learn more about producing, and which I will get to do in my thesis, but I'm really just getting to do things that I wasn't used to. I'm mainly a performer. I'm an actor and singer by trade. So getting to experience different things within the theater realm has been interesting to say the least. There have been ups and downs, and today I'm going to be talking about how all of that has been impacted by the war and October 7th and what's going on in Israel and Gaza and West Bank. I think it's fair to start at the beginning because I don't even know the quote. Every great story starts at the beginning. I come into school end of August, September of 2023. I am very excited. I've already met some of the people that I'm going to be in the program with, and I get in and everything's pretty normal. Everything's pretty cool. Everything's pretty chill. And the first month, just getting used to being back in school. I hadn't been in school for over 2 years. So that I'm sure especially people who go back for a second degree, I'm sure you know the feeling of going back and trying to get acclimated again to a university environment, even though it's in the city and it's not really a university. It's separated into buildings. It's not like Columbia where you have like a whole area, but this college is not the typical college. And I was a month in, and then beginning of October came around, and the night before October 7th, that Friday night, I actually went to my first Gay Shabbat, which was very cool. I'd never done anything like that. Gay Shabbat is a phenomenal Jewish queer event group in New York. They've branched out to Israel, but they're primarily in New York, and they've hosted Friday night Shabbat dinners that are a little bit more intimate, a little bit smaller, and that's kind of my vibe. I really enjoy having that and not being so overstimulated, but they've also branched out into non-Shabbat events. But this is my first Gay Shabbat event, and I can confidently say that I really felt a sense of community that night that I hadn't felt in a while. I was familiar to Jewish gay spaces. I had immersed myself in that already for the past 2 years. And with this new type of event that I was going to, I was nervous that I wasn't going to meet like-minded people or find a sense of community. And I was pleasantly wrong. There were so many cool people there that I still talk to. And I felt very supported. And then the event ended. I made the trek back to Long Island because I do not live in the city. I live on Long Island. And I got home. It was around midnight, 1 a.m. I had looked at Instagram and I saw that there were rockets coming into Israel, missiles coming into Israel. And rockets, missiles, I know there's a difference between them, but I don't know which specific type of projectile was coming toward Israel, but something bad was going toward Israel. And I was thinking, they've been through it before. They're going to intercept it. It's going to be fine. No worries. like an hour went by, and then I start seeing photos of the Toyotas in the streets of Israel with the Hamas terrorists on the backs of those Toyotas. And I was looking at it and I was seeing the photos and the videos and I was like, what's going on? What is going on? And then I heard about the music festival that was attacked. We all know that music festival is Nova and the massacre that happened there of over 200 people. And it was crazy. It is something that I had never seen before. I was up pretty much the whole night. I was up till like 4 a.m. and I had to be at work the next day. I was really worried because I saw all of this happening and I was like, what is going on? I think a lot of people felt that way. They didn't really know how to react to this. They were like, is this really happening? Did Israel actually miss this? And it happened and it took so long for them to get it under control. The day after I went to work and I had to act like nothing was wrong when things were wrong. And at that point, I truly did not process what was going on. I think it took me a while to process what was going on. And I went into work as if nothing happened. And then things just kept progressing as they went. As you guys know, it didn't stop on October 7th. This was going on till like at least Monday of like terrorists still in Israel, them still not being able to find people still missing. It was, when I tell you Monday in school was just, I remember I went into class, I was sitting there waiting for the teacher and my group members were starting to pour in and one of them went over to me and he knew exactly what was going on and he knew how I was feeling. And that day I went in my closet, I took out my Israel is real shirt and I wore it to class because in my mind I was thinking people are going to be supportive because this was the largest massacre of Jewish people since the Holocaust. How could people not be supportive and sympathetic? So they came over to me, my classmate, and they said, "How are you feeling?" And I said, "I'm not okay. I'm pretty drained. This was a terrible weekend. This is a terrible time." And this person immediately they were like, "Oh well, the government is problematic, the Israeli government." But then I said, "Okay, you're allowed to have your criticism about the government, but this was a massacre of over 1,000 people. What the government is like is irrelevant to this. Over 1,000 people were murdered, and over 200 were kidnapped." Forcefully and violently kidnapped. And this person kind of didn't know what to say because they knew I was right. So I went on about my day. I was just trying to be as stable as I could be. At that point, I discovered that we had a Hillel on campus. I had no idea that we did. And I found out about it through a friend who no longer goes to the school. And they had told me, oh, there's Hillel, there's this group chat, you should be a part of it. And got added to the group chat. And they immediately had a meeting after the massacre. And I tell you, that meeting was packed. There were about 50 or more people in that room. It was insane. I had never seen that amount of people gather at this school being Jewish. It was something that I had never seen at my previous undergrad. And this was even before Israel launched their response to Hamas in Gaza. And I believe the school had made a statement later on. I don't know if they had made it at that point, and then people got pissed because they didn't mention the Palestinians. This was even before they responded. So I remember the school made like a revised statement acknowledging the Palestinian struggle, which honestly, at that point, why are we mentioning that when Israel didn't even respond at that point? But that's a whole other conversation. But I went to this meeting, and at that point in time, I really got involved with Jewish life on campus. I had never done that before at my undergrad. And at that point in time, I saw that there was a need and that it was necessary to be involved and to make it as accessible as I could. So I joined the board of my Hillel, and I'm still on the board of my Hillel. People needed that space. People needed it in that time, and things were just progressively getting worse. And I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole of how things got worse because we all know how things got worse. I mean, things are even bad, still equally as bad right now. The school just went crazy, fully crazy. And the SJP mobilized, and I really could not understand why they were being so mean and insensitive, but obviously I know that now because they're all a bunch of psychos. We were just really trying to hold on to our little space at Hillel to have a safe space and have a space where you can proudly be Jewish and a space to decompress from all of the craziness going on. And one of the tipping points at our school was when the encampment started. That fully changed it. Well, actually, no. Even before then, there was something fucking crazy. I'm just gonna curse. Fucking crazy. In March of 2024, so last year, we as Hillel, for an event, we invited an IDF soldier and their sister to come and speak, to share their perspective on the war and what's been going on in the October 7th massacres and the sisters' experience. And we publicized the event and it received a lot of backlash. People were calling for the event to be canceled by the school. People were calling to boycott Hillel. People, meaning the anti-Israel SJP proxy SJP members, were doing that. And SJP actually launched a protest outside of the building where we held our events. So to give context, we had a room that we had booked at one of the campus buildings, and the location of that room, we hit the location. You had to register to be able to get the location. The location was compromised. Someone got into our chat. They leaked the location, and people knew that that was where the meeting was going to be. So we had to switch locations quickly to a room at another building. And then that location also got compromised. So we didn't know it got compromised until members of our Hillel went into the room, and there were all these anti-Israel SJP people sitting in the room staging a sit-in. And they were making it very hard for us to start the event. And to put even more context into this is what I heard from firsthand accounts from my board members. I physically wasn't there. I was at the ADL conference that day. And this is just me explaining what was going on from their perspective. But it made it very difficult for them to have the event. And they actually had to move into an administrative room. And that administrative room, they went in there, and all these anti-Israel people started hoarding around the room. And from what I was told, they were banging on the walls. They were being very intimidating. And it got to a point where security came in and they told the Hillel members, you have to shut down the event. You have to shut down the event early. It's a safety concern. And they were holed up in the room for probably about 30 minutes to an hour before they were able to be escorted out by security. And people were following them. People were following them out of the building. They were screaming baby killers. They were basically verbally harassing all of these students, all of these crazy anti-Israel people and these SJP people. And they followed them down city blocks. They exited the building and they still followed these Hillel students down the blocks of New York City. I don't understand how something like this could have not been handled quicker. It took a long time for the school to actually handle it. All I know is that there were teachers who participated in this, faculty of my university, and they were suspended. And then there was another protest for the teachers who got suspended for harassing these students for an event that they were rightfully able to have. And it was crazy, 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 crazy. And you could look it up. It's on the internet. I kind of felt very guilty not being there because I was at that conference and my friends were being harassed. And I felt that sense of guilt for not being there. But then now we get to the encampments, because after this, maybe about a month or two after, the encampment started. At my school, it wasn't as worse as what other schools experienced, but let's just say that these students were making it very hard for these anti-Israel SJP members were making it very hard for students to actually study on campus and to be on campus. They fully took over the main lobby of our university center, which is right on Fifth Avenue. And it was something that I never thought would happen at our school because we're such a small school. We're not like one of the bigger schools. So it was very weird that something like that was happening at our school. At least for me, I wasn't being exposed to a lot of what was going on because my building is very removed from a lot of the main buildings on my campus, the building that I'm mainly in, and I wasn't seeing like more than half of the stuff that was going on. So I was hearing about everything from group chats, from people sending it to me, and I very much did not want to be near that area. I would only go there if it was for a club meeting, which I think we had switched our location. At that point, our location was not in the main building. It was in another school building, so we didn't have to encounter those people. But I guess I might as well get into the harassment case that I filed because a former student of my university actually verbally harassed me outside campus, literally outside the campus building. And I can't say much about the student, but this student had harassed other students in the past, has called other students derogatory terms, actually prevented a non-Jewish student that they perceived was Jewish from entering a building and actually pushed the student out of the way. And it was this person is just a nightmare. Full nightmare. Was a major part of SJP at our school. And I was walking around the university building, which I have a right to. I'm a student. And the person spotted me and actually came over to me and said, "Oh, get out of here. You're not welcome here." And then I filmed it. It's on my Instagram. If you want to look back enough, May of 2024, you can find the video. This person actively harassed me, called me racist, said that I'm an anti-Semite. Make that make sense. I got the whole thing on video, and it's online, it's public, but this person is just completely bonkers, like actually bonkers, and I filed a harassment claim against them. I went through the Title IX office, civil rights office. He was impeding on me being able to even enter a building. He was telling me that I wasn't welcome in that area, that I wasn't welcome into the building. And I sent in my evidence, I sent in my email. They got back to me about 2 weeks later. This was in the beginning of May. And then the end of May came around and they said, "Oh, we have your case and we're reviewing it." I actively followed up with the office multiple times, emailed them 2 weeks later, a month later. I emailed them in the middle of the summer. Sometimes I would get responses back saying, "Oh, this person's out of office. They'll get back to you when they're back." I never got anything back from them. And then it took me, I don't know if this was the actual cause of it, but it was very coincidental. I posted a video on my account and I said, "I have not heard back from the Title IX office in over 2 months. What's going on?" Literally the day after, I get an email back from the head of Title IX at my school saying, "Oh, we'd like to set up a meeting with you to discuss your evidence." So I got on a meeting with them. They basically took my statement and then I waited a little bit longer. At that point, I did not have like an official statement sent in, but then like later on, I ended up writing an official statement that got submitted in. This was October. And after October, after I submitted this official statement, it took this long for even some type of documentation to get back. And for further context on this, the person who verbally assaulted me and harassed me did not respond to any of their inquiries. I was the only one that was responsive. This person did not respond. They were unresponsive. And I think the only thing that they responded to, which is initial, which doesn't even matter because it's not relevant to it now because they ended up not responding, was that, "Oh, I'm going to seek an advisor." And I was like, "Okay, I have an advisor too." If this episode seems very jumpy, it is because I need to be very careful with what I'm saying because I don't want issues, but I just want to share with you guys my experience of what I went through. But I had an advisor. They wanted to get an advisor. They got their advisor, but then they stopped responding after that. And they were still giving this person benefit of the doubt, and they were still giving this person an opportunity to speak after they missed meetings to give their side of the story, after they didn't do anything to further their side of the case. I was the only one being responsive. By October, I submit my statement. I do not hear back from them until May of 2025. Submit this in October of 2024. I don't hear back until May. It's nearing on a year of this incident happening. This is after multiple emails. between me and Title IX, my advisor in Title IX. You want to know how I got my response finally? I had a conversation with someone who is very important at the school, someone who, frankly, has been really great. I had a conversation with them saying, I have not heard from Title IX in like over 6 months. I've emailed. My advisor has emailed. What's going on? So then the day after, I get a response. And Title IX, this is what they write. Your case is closed because this student that you're submitting the claim against is no longer within our jurisdiction. Let me explain that in simple terms. They are no longer a student. It took you 6 months, over 6 months, to tell me that you're not going to do anything for me because the student's no longer a student? Why didn't you do anything when the student was a student? The student either left on their own terms or the school threw them out. I have no idea. I have no idea what happened. They obviously can't tell me what happened. And I sent back an email saying, you mean to tell me that I have been waiting 6 months for you to tell me that my case is going to be closed because the student is no longer a student? And they sent me basically a copy and pasted reply. And you know, it was a copy and pasted reply, not only because it was such a generic response, but also they copied it twice. They copied and pasted it twice. I just laugh when I talk about this now because it is just a whole other level of absurdity. And this is my parting message with this, because I cannot talk about this anymore for many reasons. But if someone like me, who is grateful enough and lucky enough to have a platform to bring up issues, especially within universities for Jewish students, if someone with my platform cannot even have something dealt with in my own school, I cannot imagine what it's like for students who don't have a platform. It's like, if I can't get justice as someone who has a platform and someone who's lucky enough to have a voice and be given a voice, I can't imagine what it's like for other students. And I sympathize with you guys so much, and I want to give you that platform. And I have given you that platform, and I want to continue to give you that platform. If someone like me who has an audience can't even get stuff done and have justice, then what the fuck is going to happen with everyone else? Because I have called them out. I have done what I can. I've spoken with people. I've made the right moves, or whatever the term is, and I still did not have justice. I was told all that mental strain that you went through of having to relive that moment multiple times. When I was telling it, I had to keep being reminded of it when I would have to email them to check in on a case that I submitted, that they should have followed up with me. You're telling me that I had to live through that multiple times just for you to tell me that it's not gonna go through. I'm done with this. I'm done talking about it. Yeah, I guess I'll just say it briefly because it is in the past and things have gotten better within my major. Shit went down within my major. I had a really rough time during the encampment period. This was all going on at the same time, by the way. And it was just, I remember I was in such a bad place mentally with the situation that happened with me, with the verbal harassment, and then all of this crap within my own classes was going on, of like people wanting to go on strike to support the students at the encampments who were arrested. It was affecting classes, final presentations, and I was at a point where I was like, I have values that I follow. What you guys are doing is not fair to people who don't have the same values as you. And I should not have to be pressured into doing what you guys are doing simply because I'm outnumbered. That's not how it works in a professional environment. That's not how it works in this school. We're in a theater master's program. You have to act like we're in a professional environment. If my values don't reflect the values of the majority, that has to be respected. You can't say we all stand for these values when that's not true. And bottom line, I made sure that I was heard. I made sure fair decisions were made that respected me and the other people. And at the end of the day, I mean, did it affect my relationships with people? Yeah. Have the relationships gotten better? Yeah, over time. It just, that point in my life, that point in my schooling, it really made me have a hard time trusting people within my own industry. It made me very sad that this is what it's come to, that everything has become so drenched in politics and advocacy and humanitarianism and everything has gotten so drenched in it that it's destroying what we're here to do, which is make art. Sure, art is inherently political, but the war in Israel and Gaza does not have to do with the production that we're putting on. It doesn't. So don't bring it into the room. Do not bring it into the room. You can acknowledge that, sure, you can acknowledge there's a strike going on and um, that there are people participating in that strike, but you have to take into account that there are people in that room who do not want to go on strike. And this is an optional strike. This isn't like the SAG after strike where it affects everyone that has a SAG card. That's completely different. This is a strike in a school, an optional student strike. I don't need to fall under it if I don't want to. So, bottom line, things did get better. Thank God they got better. I guess the one main takeaway that I took from that situation is that I stood up for myself. I stood up for the people around me who did agree with me, whether it was publicly or silently. And I just hope that every single Jewish student can do that. I know it's easier said than done, but we can't cower. And I know it's tough and I know it's scary. And I've had moments where my heart is literally beating out of my chest, and I will go into when moments have been heart beating out of my chest, because there's more to this than what I just told you. There are moments where I had that, but you are going to regret not speaking up as opposed to speaking up. You're always going to think in the back of your head, I could have said this, I could have said that. Just say it, do it. It's okay. And on top of that, if you feel that you're going to get penalized for it, or there's going to be backlash, or you're not going to get hired, seek legal counsel. And also think about it this way. Would you really want to be working with people who don't respect you? That's my 2 cents. Let's talk about my time on the student government. Ooh, this is going to be fun. Should I really go into immense detail about it? Yeah, let's do it. I decided that I wanted to go into student government because I heard that there were going to be a lot of people from the Students for Justice in Palestine on the student government as senators. And I thought, there's only at least one pro-Israel voice on that whole Senate, that whole government, and they need a second one. So I decided to run. I got in, and let me tell you that that was one of the most frustrating things I have done. And ironically, oh, ironically, the person who harassed and assaulted me was also on the student government. Oh my gosh. They were on the student government too, and I had to be in the same room with them, and I had a no contact order with them, so I had to be very careful with what I said and how I said things. But basically, let's point out certain things. Well, there were times where people would laugh at me in the room when that wasn't supposed to be happening, when I brought up certain points, which one of them, I'll talk about the one time people laughed at me. We had the president of the school in the room, and he was basically taking questions from the senators, and one of the senators was bringing up how he was going to support SJP, and I immediately raised my hand and I said, I think it's very important to mention that. Oh, wait, I forgot the most important thing. Well, not the most important thing, but one of the most important things. SJP was on probation at my school for putting the logo of Hamas on an event flyer. So this person brought up SJP, and I raised my hand and I said, hey, I don't think it's appropriate to bring up an organization on campus that is not only currently on probation, but actively supported a US recognized terrorist organization. I got laughed at. I was told that I was attacking the student specifically, which I wasn't. It's criticizing, because I didn't feel it was right for the student to bring up an organization that is on bad terms in a student government setting. So I got laughed at, and then as I was leaving that meeting, I got heckled outside the building by one of the friends of the senator. They said some very derogatory things to me, and I reported that too. Nothing went with it other than the friend of the student, who wasn't even a student on campus anymore, was barred from entering the building, thankfully. And that ended up counting against me too, because now they had made up this whole thing in the Senate room of like, oh, we're barring people of color from the Senate room from attending meetings. And I was like, this isn't about who the person is. This is about the fact that they verbally harassed me outside the building, and I was targeted for what I said in a student government meeting. Yeah. do what you will with that. That happened, and then thing after that moment, I talked with the heads of the student government, and I said what is happening is not okay, and I really didn't appreciate what was going on, and things somewhat got better. They did get better, a little bit better. Ironically, the person who harassed me, who was on the student government, actually they either left or they were removed. I don't know exactly what happened, but they were no longer there. I forgot to mention that I was in student government from like fall of 2024 to spring of 2025. So for that context, this was after the encampments and everything. Probably one of the most obscene things that happened within that student government was a resolution that eventually got swept under the rug and thankfully shut down by the school. But I was shocked that it was even brought up and even written. There were 3 individuals on the student government, including the heads, who wrote and approved a resolution for the student government of the university to cut all ties with Hillel as an organization. No funding, no anything from student government. And to put context into it, the student government at my university, they deal with a lot of the communication between clubs on campus, and they deal with a lot of the funding. So it was just reading that, and they based it off of the fact that we had hosted that event with the IDF soldier and the sister, and that we should not have any support from the student government because we support genocide. And as someone who was on the board for Hillel at the time, it was very hard for me to see that. And I was furious because something like this is not allowed. You're not allowed to discriminate against a club. You're not allowed to discriminate, especially against a club for a protected group of people. I immediately took it over to administration. It was shut down immediately, and it's like it never happened. The messages were deleted from the group chats that we were in, and no one brought it up in the next meeting where it was supposed to be presented. And I forgot one caveat of it. So basically, in the resolution, they were mandating that until Hillel cuts all ties with Birthright and Hillel International, that student government will not work with Hillel or converse with them. Oh my god. But then it got swept under the rug like nothing happened, and nothing came of it. I think most of the people who, well, not I think, I know most of the people who were on that, who had wrote that resolution, were no longer in the student government after that. I don't know if it was because of that or because of other reasons, but they weren't on it. And ironically, the person that harassed me who was on student government helped write this resolution. Am I shocked? Nope. But they kind of pretended that it didn't happen. And then people in the community got hold of this resolution that never saw the light of day, thank God. And they were worried of it existing. I had people contacting me saying, "Hey, what the hell is this?" And I had to tell them, it's been dealt with. We already took care of it. It is not going anywhere. And what worried me is that some of the people who were a part of that resolution were still on the student government, even in this upcoming iteration of it. There are people who were a part of that resolution who had seen it and had approved it and had written it, who are still on the student government, and that is mind-boggling to me. And I brought up concern about it. I have said, how could people like that be on a student government when they have attempted to actively discriminate against students on campus? Allegedly, they're still there. Maybe that's changed, but I made it very clear that I was not okay with them being on there, especially with me not being there, because I don't know what the hell they're going to do. I don't know if they're going to try some other shit too, and no one's going to be there to stop them, or hopefully there would be someone there to stop them. I don't know. But that resolution, it was just, I don't understand how you could let people write that and even present it. And it got shut down by the school, but still, the fact that it was even in their mind to do that, to discriminate against Jewish people. Oh my god. But the student government was so messed up. We get into Tu B'Shvat, And I took on the initiative of wanting to make holiday posts that were made by the student government celebrating different holidays. And I thought it was important to make a Tu B'Shvat post because Tu B'Shvat it's an important Jewish holiday. It's not one of the most important, but it's important. And I felt, especially since we try to be a very eco-friendly school, that it's a perfect holiday to commemorate because it's about trees, it's about the environment. And I created the post. I mentioned in the post that the holiday is celebrated in Israel because more than half the world's Jewish population lives in Israel. I said the holiday is celebrated in Israel. This got so much backlash. The amount of comments that were left on this post. And bottom line, one of the people on the student government who had only access to the account, which I didn't have. I had to submit things, have them approved, and then posted. So this post was approved. I had spoken with the person has access to the student government social media page about the post. They brought up that it was concerning that Israel was mentioned, and I said, why are we alienating a portion of our student body? We're supposed to be here for all students. There are students from Israel who study here. Mentioning that a holiday is celebrated in Israel should not be a problem. We're not promoting any type of government. We're not promoting anything. We're just mentioning that it is celebrated in a place. And they actually agreed with me, and that quickly turned. When the post got backlash, this person actually went back into the account and wrote an update to the caption that we had and mentioned that, we have to acknowledge the environmental impact that Israel is having and the pollution and the environmental destruction, and that we stand with indigenous communities and that we're against colonization and we support the liberation of Palestine. So they wrote all of this, and I said, how dare you co-opt a Jewish holiday? And this was something that was going to be discussed in a meeting further, and another senator was very, very upset about this post being put up and had written in the group chat when it was uploaded. They said, and I quote, "This is embarrassing," and allegedly this student is Jewish. And I told them, I said, in the room, I said, I find it extremely disrespectful that you are saying that a Jewish holiday is embarrassing. And by you having the stance that you have of saying, this is embarrassing, this is terrible, why are we supporting colonialism, you are invalidating a portion of your student body, and you're supposed to be here for everyone, not just for you, not just for your personal interests, but for everyone. And they kind of just stayed silent. And I even asked them a question. I said, are you saying that you don't acknowledge a portion of your student body? And they didn't really give a response because their answer was yes, they don't acknowledge a portion of their student body. And ironically, this person actually wrote a resolution with me to get the Jewish holidays back on our school calendar. Bottom line, it was just very, very disheartening. And there was just a lot of abuse of power happening. It was very, very bad. And at the end of it all, I later found out that I can't say how I found out because I don't know if I can, but I'll say what it is. I found out that since the second that I stepped into that student government, I was being pushed out because of my views, and that they were trying to load up the student government with SJP and anti-Israel people to make sure that I was outnumbered. There's just so much, and this has been in my head for a long time, and I have so much more to say. It's just very jumbled right now. But to finish off on that, I really felt icky when I heard that. I felt like, wow, people were actively against me for simply having the stances that I had, and that they were trying to get me out or to silence me. And it was very hard to hear that. And on top of that, they owe me a lot of money for travel that I still have yet to receive. And I was promised, it is literally written in an email that I was promised these funds, and I still have not really received those funds because I would come in every week from Long Island specifically for this meeting, and they said that they would cover that money since I was coming in specifically for it, and I still have yet to see most of that money. Bottom line, student government was a shit show. I am no longer in it because I frankly do not have the time to be in it anymore, and honestly, I do not want to have a headache anymore because the entire time that I was there, I really did not feel valued. I didn't feel respected. Maybe in moments I did, but for the most part, especially with all the crap that happened at the end of me finding out all of that, it just left a really, really sour taste in my mouth. And all I have to say is best of luck to the people who are going to be in student government next year because you are going to need a lot of patience, especially if you are not for all of this anti-Israel crap going on. You need a lot of patience. So that's that. Oh, wait. I didn't even mention this. There was so much shit that happened there. I'll just mention this briefly. The people who were anti-Israel in the student government, they were very much in support of having divestment, which that conversation happened at a lot of campuses, but they quickly realized that having Israel at the center of it wasn't working. So they went into a more environmental focus of that, oh, we need to divest from fossil fuel companies and weapons manufacturers because it's bad for the environment. And oh gosh, it was just laughable because you are saying that one of the most environmentally forward countries in the world, which is Israel, is an environmental terrorist. Israel has invested so much into environmental technology. They've planted so many trees. They have invested so much in that land. They literally took a pile of sand and made it fertile and made it usable. And they're here saying that they're an environmental terrorist. Okay, I'm done with this. That was a lot. It was very scattered. I know I'm very, very removed from this. I've been removed from it for a few months now. And I just wanted to share with you guys the craziness of what was going on in my school. And there's a lot more, not enough time to share it. I mean, we're already at almost an hour. I just want to thank you for the support that you've shown me, especially when I've dealt with all the crap that has been going on in my school. I am very, very fortunate enough that I have not had to deal with half of the stuff that Jewish students have had to deal with on their campuses. People have been through way worse than I have. And I just want to say I applaud you. It's never easy to have to go through stuff like this. At the end of the day, like I said before, standing your ground and standing up for your values will always be the best thing that you can do. Never succumb to anything, never check your values at the door. You have a right to speak up and you should speak up. That's all I got for now. I know we mainly talked about school, but I feel like we've talked about October 7th enough that I didn't really need to rehash a lot of the things because I think we all have a lot mentally going on and a lot of trauma. And I just wanted to take this time to talk about things that have been roaming around in my mind and that I've kind of tried and made peace with. But, anyways, this is Hot Jewish Energy. You can find me on pretty much most main social media platforms: Instagram, TikTok, X, Facebook, at Hot Jewish Energy, at Hot Jewish Energy Podcast, at Michael T. Valdes with an S at the end. I really hope you guys enjoy the rest of the season. I want to be very transparent with you. Some of these interviews were filmed before October 7th, and some of them were refilmed after October 7th. So some things may be a little off without mentioning about the war. It's because the war did not happen at that point. So I think I'm going to try and put a little disclaimer saying if it was filmed before October 7th, if I don't put the disclaimer, that means that it was filmed after. But I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the season. Please stay safe out there. Please stand your ground. Be true to who you are. And I will see you on the next one. Bye. Thank you for watching. This is Hot Jewish Energy. If you like this episode, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and share your favorite moment in the comments. If you're on any of the podcasting platforms, give us a 5-star rating and let us know your favorite part of the show. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next episode.